Daddy, I can't see you. Where are you? 7-year-old Emma Richardson's voice cut through the mechanical sounds of the ride, her small hands gripping the safety bar as tears streamed down her face. Beside her, 9-year-old Michael sat frozen, his eyes wide with a horror no child should ever witness. The ride that had started with excited squeals and laughter had transformed into a nightmare in seconds. Cast members rushed past confused guests, their practiced Disney smiles replaced with panic. Emergency stop buttons were slammed. Radios crackled with codes that meant nothing to visitors, but everything to staff who knew their darkest implications. "We need help at track 3. Now, he's trapped under." The radio cut to static. In the mechanical darkness beneath tons of moving steel, Henry Richardson, 42, devoted single father of 2, was fighting a battle he couldn't win. The man who had saved every penny for months to give his children this perfect day at the happiest place on earth was now trapped in its mechanical heart, crushed by the very magic he'd wanted them to experience. July 15, a scorching Saturday at Disneyland. The summer crowds were at their peak. The Richardson family had arrived at rope drop, Henry's backpack loaded with snacks, sunscreen, and the autograph book Emma clutched like treasure. They'd already met 3 princesses, rode the teacups twice, and Henry had somehow convinced both kids to eat something besides churros for lunch. But Henry Richardson wasn't just another tourist. He was a father on a mission. Since losing his wife Sarah to cancer 3 years earlier, these moments with his children had become everything. Every smile, every laugh, every magical memory was a victory against the grief that had threatened to consume their small family. Nobody could have predicted that by 2:47 p.m., Henry Richardson would be gone, victim of a preventable tragedy that would forever change how we think about theme park safety. You're watching When Fun Turns Fatal. If this story moves you, subscribe and share, because what you're about to learn could save a life. Henry Richardson wasn't supposed to be a single parent. The aerospace engineer from Pasadena had mapped out his life with the same precision he applied to designing satellite components. Marry Sarah at 28, buy a house at 30, have 2 kids by 35, retire at 60, and travel the world. The plan was perfect until life reminded him that some things can't be engineered. Sarah's diagnosis came on Michael's 6th birthday, pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave her 6 months. She fought for 18. Those final months transformed Henry, from a man who worked 60-hour weeks to someone who understood that time was the only currency that mattered. After Sarah died, Henry became a different person, recalled his sister Maria. He didn't just step up as a father. He revolutionized his entire life around those kids. He learned to braid Emma's hair from YouTube videos. He memorized every Pokemon character for Michael. He became both parents in one. Henry restructured his career, taking a pay cut to work remotely 3 days a week. He turned down promotions that would have meant longer hours. His colleagues thought he was crazy. His kids thought he was a superhero. Every Friday became Adventure Friday. Sometimes the beach, sometimes museums, sometimes just building blanket forts and watching movies. But Disneyland was special. Sarah had been a Disney fanatic, the kind of person who cried during the fireworks and knew every hidden Mickey location. She'd planned to take the kids herself when Emma turned 5. Henry found her planning notebook after she died, pages of meticulous research about ride heights, best times to visit, and which characters to meet first. He treated that notebook like a mission briefing, Maria remembered. He was determined to give the kids the exact experience Sarah had envisioned. He saved for over a year, putting away whatever he could. This wasn't just a trip, it was a pilgrimage. The week before the Disneyland trip, Henry had been a bundle of nervous energy. He'd studied park maps like tactical documents, downloaded 3 different touring apps, and even joined online forums to get insider tips. His browser history was nothing but best Disneyland tips for single parents and how to manage 2 kids at theme park alone. Michael later told investigators that his dad had made them practice. He had us do buddy system drills in the mall. If we got separated, we were supposed to find a cast member, someone with a name tag. He made us memorize his phone number again, even though we already knew it. He was really serious about keeping us safe. Henry's preparation went beyond logistics. He'd started talking to the kids about their mum more, sharing stories about her love for Disney. He showed them pictures from his and Sarah's honeymoon at Disney World, pointing out rides they'd experienced together. This trip wasn't just about fun, it was about connection, healing, and honoring Sarah's memory. The night before the trip, Henry had tucked both kids into bed with an excitement that was contagious. Tomorrow's going to be magic, he'd promised Emma, using the same phrase Sarah always had, pure magic. He'd stayed up until 2 a.m., checking and rechecking their bag, printing backup tickets, and writing a note to Sarah in his journal. I hope I make you proud tomorrow. I hope I can give them even half the joy you would have. Watch over us. Co-workers described Henry as methodical, careful, someone who considered every angle before making decisions. He was the guy who actually read instruction manuals, who followed recipes to the letter, who never took shortcuts. This meticulous nature extended to parenting. He researched everything from car seat safety ratings to the developmental benefits of different toys. He was, by all accounts, the last person who should have ended up in a preventable accident. But Henry had one blind spot: his trust in established institutions. He believed that places designed for children, especially somewhere as prominent as Disneyland, would prioritize safety above all else. He believed that billion-dollar corporations with decades of experience wouldn't cut corners when lives were at stake. He believed that following the rules and trusting the system would keep his family safe. As he loaded the kids into the car at 6 a.m. that Saturday morning, Henry Richardson had thought of everything except the possibility that the happiest place on earth could become the site of his children's worst nightmare. The Big Thunder Mountain Railroad had been thrilling guests since 1979, a masterpiece of Imagineering that combined the excitement of a roller coaster with the immersive storytelling Disney was famous for. But beneath the carefully crafted facade of an abandoned mining town, a different story was developing. One of deferred maintenance, ignored warnings, and a corporate culture that prioritized profits over people. Internal documents that would later surface in the investigation revealed troubling patterns. In the 5 years leading up to Henry Richardson's death, maintenance budgets for classic attractions had been slashed by 22%. Staff who had once performed daily comprehensive inspections were reduced to quick visual checks. The specialized team that once focused solely on ride safety had been merged with general maintenance, their expertise diluted across multiple responsibilities. We were told to do more with less every year, testified James Wheeler, a former senior ride mechanic who'd worked on Big Thunder Mountain for 15 years before quitting in frustration 6 months before the accident. We went from having 4 hours of downtime each night for maintenance to having 2. Then they wanted us to skip certain checks if nothing had been reported. It was only a matter of time before something went catastrophically wrong. The ride itself was a marvel of engineering complexity. Over a mile of track, sophisticated computer controls, dozens of animated figures, and an intricate system of block zones designed to keep trains safely separated. But complexity meant more potential failure points. and each cost-cutting measure introduced new risks into the system. 3 months before Henry Richardson's visit, ride operator Melissa Chen had filed an incident report about unusual sounds coming from the track section near the final lift hill. Metallic grinding, especially when fully loaded trains passed over, she'd written. The report was marked non-critical and scheduled for investigation during the next major refurbishment, scheduled for 18 months later. 6 weeks before the accident, another operator reported that the anti-rollback mechanism on the final brake run seemed sluggish. A maintenance worker had sprayed some lubricant and marked it resolved. No one had performed the comprehensive inspection that would have revealed the hairline fractures developing in the crucial safety components. The morning of July 15 started with what investigators would later identify as the first in a cascade of failures. During the pre-opening test runs, operators noticed one of the trains took slightly longer than usual to complete the circuit. The variance was just 3.2 seconds, within the acceptable parameters according to the operations manual. What the manual didn't account for was that this seemingly minor delay indicated a much more serious problem developing in the ride's braking system. By 10 a.m., when the Richardson family entered the park, Big Thunder Mountain had already cycled through nearly 300 guests without incident. But mechanical failures rarely announce themselves with dramatic warning signs. Instead, they whisper through small anomalies that compound until catastrophe becomes inevitable. The ride's original designer, Tony Baxter, had built in multiple redundancies. If one brake failed, others would compensate. If the computer system detected an anomaly, it would trigger an automatic shutdown. But these safety systems assumed regular maintenance and prompt response to irregularities. They weren't designed to compensate for years of deferred upkeep and normalized deviance. Normalized deviance, the term investigators would use repeatedly in their final report. It's what happens when small violations of protocol become routine, when good enough replaces right, when financial pressures slowly erode safety margins until disaster becomes not just possible but inevitable. At 2:15 p.m., 32 minutes before Henry Richardson would board, maintenance received an automated alert about irregular brake pressure in Zone 4. The responding technician found the pressure reading just 2% below normal, technically within operational limits, but at the very bottom of the acceptable range. Following the current protocols, he logged it for monitoring, but didn't take the ride offline. What he didn't know, couldn't know, without the comprehensive diagnostic that had been eliminated from routine checks, was that this pressure drop was the result of a critical component reaching the point of failure. Deep within the mechanical systems, metal that had endured 44 years of stress was finally giving way. The Richardson family joined the queue at 2:31 p.m. Wait time was posted at 25 minutes. Henry lifted Emma onto his shoulders so she could see over the crowd, while Michael studied the mining town, theming with the intense focus he brought to everything. They were living Sarah's dream, creating the memories she'd planned. Blissfully unaware, they were walking into a tragedy years in the making. The Swiss cheese model of accident causation suggests that disasters occur when multiple system failures align, like holes in slices of Swiss cheese lining up, to create a clear path for catastrophe. On July 15, at Disneyland, every slice had a hole, and they were all about to align perfectly. At 1:47 p.m., an hour before the Richardsons would board, cast member David Kimmerer noticed something troubling during his position rotation. As he moved from the loading platform to the tower position, he observed what appeared to be a small fluid leak beneath the track near the final brake run. The operations manual was clear. Any unexplained fluid required immediate maintenance inspection. But the summer Saturday, crowds were at their peak. The ride was cycling at full capacity with 45-minute waits. Kimura faced a decision that cast members confronted daily: follow safety protocols to the letter and face management frustration over unnecessary downtime, or make a judgment call that the issue could wait until the scheduled maintenance window. "I called it in to maintenance," Kimura would later testify, his voice breaking. "They said they were slammed with a situation at Space Mountain and asked if it was actively dripping. When I said it looked like older staining with maybe some fresh wetness, they told me to monitor it and they'd check at the next downtime." This conversation, recorded on the maintenance communication log at 1:52 p.m., represented the first critical failure. The fluid was hydraulic oil from the primary brake system, its presence indicating a seal failure that was rapidly worsening under the stress of continuous operation. Budget documents subpoenaed during the investigation revealed a stark picture. In 2019, Big Thunder Mountain's maintenance allocation had been $2.3 million annually. By 2023, it had been reduced to $1.4 million, despite inflation and the ride's increasing age. The specialized hydraulic systems that had once been serviced monthly were now on a quarterly schedule. The external contractors who provided expertise on critical safety systems had been replaced by general maintenance staff who, while competent, lacked specialized training. "It was death by 1,000 cuts," explained Dr. Patricia Hoffman, a theme park safety expert who reviewed the case. "No single decision directly caused this tragedy. But each small compromise, each deferred maintenance, each ignored warning sign, removed another layer of protection until there was nothing left to prevent disaster." At 2:05 p.m., the ride's computer system logged an anomaly that should have triggered immediate shutdown. Brake pressure in Zone 4 dropped below minimum operational standards for 1.3 seconds before recovering. The alert appeared on the tower operator's screen, but was automatically cleared when pressure normalized. The operator, following training that emphasized avoiding unnecessary ride stops, made a note in the log but didn't initiate shutdown procedures. This was the second critical failure. The computer system was designed in an era when any anomaly would result in human investigation, but decades of reliable operation had bred complacency. Operators were now trained to trust the system's judgment over their own instincts, told that the computer would force a shutdown if truly necessary. The maintenance culture had shifted dramatically over the years. Veterans like James Wheeler spoke of a time when ride mechanics took personal pride in their attractions, when "my ride" meant something. When a suspicious sound or feel would result in immediate investigation, regardless of operational impact. But corporate restructuring had turned specialized ride mechanics into general technicians, responsible for multiple attractions, racing between emergency calls with no time for preventive care. "We used to walk the track every morning," recalled Sandra Vega, who worked Big Thunder maintenance for 12 years. "We'd check every bolt, every weld, listen to every sound. By the time I left, we were doing visual inspections from the ground with binoculars. How can you spot a hairline crack from 50 feet away?" At 2:28 p.m., just as the Richardson family was entering the queue, the final safety meeting of the day was concluding in the maintenance office. The agenda, recovered by investigators, showed 18 items requiring attention across the park. Big Thunder Mountain's brake pressure anomaly was item 15, marked as Monitor, Non-Critical. The meeting ran long, as they always did. Staffing was down 30% from recommended levels. The maintenance supervisor, overwhelmed with competing priorities, made a fateful decision. Big Thunder's issue could wait until the overnight crew. After all, the computer said it was within parameters. The ride had run all day without incident. What could go wrong in the next few hours? This represented the third and most crucial failure: the normalization of operating at the edge of safety margins. When probably okay became definitely okay. When financial pressures transformed should inspect into will inspect later. When decades without a major incident bred false confidence in deteriorating systems. Unknown to anyone, deep within the brake mechanism of Zone 4, metal fatigued from 44 years of stress had finally reached its breaking point. A crack that had started as a microscopic imperfection was now a quarter-inch gap, held together by little more than friction and hope. Each passing train stressed it further. Each stop tested its declining integrity. At 2:43 p.m., as Henry Richardson helped his children into their seats, securing Emma beside him while Michael sat directly behind, the hydraulic line feeding the Zone 4 primary brake system was moments from catastrophic failure. The backup systems that should have compensated had been compromised by their own maintenance deferrals. The sensors that should have detected the imminent failure had been calibrated to ignore minor fluctuations. The holes in the Swiss cheese were perfectly aligned. All that remained was for the Richardson family's train to reach Zone 4, where physics would take over and corporate negligence would extract its terrible price. At 2:47 p.m., the Richardson family's train crested the final lift hill. Emma squealed with delight, her small hand squeezing her father's as they prepared for the thrilling descent. Michael gripped the lap bar, his nervous excitement matching his father's reassuring smile. For exactly 17 seconds, they were having the time of their lives. Then the train entered Zone 4. The catastrophic failure was immediate and complete. The weakened hydraulic line didn't just leak or slowly fail. It exploded with a sound like a gunshot. Pressurized fluid sprayed across the mechanical components as the primary brake system lost all stopping power. The backup mechanical brakes, compromised by years of deferred maintenance, engaged partially but unevenly. Instead of smoothly decelerating, the train lurched violently. The sudden asymmetric braking caused the rear cars to jackknife. In the third row, Henry Richardson felt the violent jolt as his section of the train lifted and twisted. The lap bar, designed for normal operational forces, wasn't engineered for this kind of lateral stress. The design never anticipated this failure mode, accident reconstruction expert Dr. Michael Torres would later explain. The safety systems were built on assumptions that no longer held true. When you defer maintenance on interdependent systems, you create failure possibilities that the original engineers never imagined. What happened next took less than 4 seconds, but would haunt witnesses forever. The violent twisting motion threw Henry partially out of his seat. The lap bar, still technically locked, but now at an angle never tested, caught him at the waist. As the train continued its erratic deceleration, Henry was pulled down and forward, his body becoming wedged between the seat and the ride vehicle's exterior shell. The gap, normally insufficient to pose any danger, had become a deadly trap due to the train's deformation. Emma's scream pierced the air. "Daddy! Daddy!" She reached for him, but cast members were already shouting for her to stay seated. Behind them, Michael sat frozen, his 9-year-old mind unable to process what he was seeing. Tower operator Jennifer Martinez hit the emergency stop, but the damage was done. The train sat at an unnatural angle, partially derailed, with Henry Richardson trapped beneath tons of steel and fiberglass. The mechanical systems designed to move the train forward now prevented any movement that might free him. "We have a code red at Big Thunder, Zone 4. Martinez's training kicked in even as her voice shook. "Guest entrapped. Need immediate response." The Disneyland emergency response team, among the best in the industry, arrived within 90 seconds. But they faced an impossible situation. Henry was conscious, talking to his children, trying to keep them calm, even as his own situation grew more desperate. The weight of the ride vehicle pressed on his chest and abdomen, making each breath a struggle. Paramedic Susan Chen was first on scene. He was remarkably composed. She would later testify through tears. His only concern was for his kids. He kept telling them he was okay, that help was coming, that they were being so brave. The Anaheim Fire Department arrived at 2:54 p.m. Their heavy rescue team immediately recognized the severity of the situation. Moving the train risked crushing Henry further. Cutting him free would take time they didn't have. His breathing was becoming increasingly labored. Captain Robert Flynn made the only decision he could. They would attempt to lift the train using hydraulic spreaders and airbags, creating enough space to extract Henry. But the ride's complex construction made finding safe lifting points nearly impossible. Each minute that passed, Henry's condition deteriorated. "Daddy, please get up," Emma sobbed, cast members holding her back as she tried to reach her father. "We have to go see Mickey. You promised we'd see Mickey." Henry, fighting for each breath, managed to smile at his daughter. "Mickey will wait for us, baby. He'll wait." The rescue team worked with desperate efficiency. By 3:08 p.m., they had managed to create a small gap. Henry was still conscious, still talking to his children, but his words were becoming harder to understand. The pressure on his internal organs had caused massive trauma. Internal bleeding was rapidly becoming critical. Michael, mature beyond his 9 years, held his sister's hand. "It's okay, Emma. The firefighters are helping Dad. Remember what he taught us? Be brave like Mommy." At 3:14 p.m., the rescue team managed to extract Henry from beneath the ride vehicle. He was immediately placed on a stretcher as paramedics began aggressive treatment, but the damage was too severe. The crushing weight had caused multiple organ failure, internal bleeding that couldn't be stopped. As they loaded him into the ambulance, Henry managed to lock eyes with his children one last time. Witnesses said he mouthed the words, "I love you," before losing consciousness. Henry Richardson was pronounced dead at 3:47 p.m. at UCI Medical Center, exactly 1 hour after boarding the ride that was supposed to create magical memories for his children. The official cause of death was listed as multiple organ failure due to crush injuries. The aftermath was swift and devastating. Disneyland immediately closed Big Thunder Mountain, but the damage to the park's reputation was nothing compared to the human cost. 2 children were left orphaned, their last memory of their father trapped beneath the ride he'd chosen to share their mother's dream. Emma and Michael were placed with their Aunt Maria, who found herself suddenly responsible for 2 traumatized children. Years of therapy would follow. Michael developed a fear of any mechanical rides. Emma couldn't hear the word Disney without crying. The magical kingdom had become the site of their worst nightmare. The investigation that followed revealed the years of systematic failures that led to Henry's death. Dozens of employees came forward with stories of ignored maintenance requests, deferred repairs, and pressure to keep rides operational despite safety concerns. The hydraulic failure was traced to a component that should have been replaced 5 years earlier. Disneyland paid a record settlement to the Richardson family, the amount sealed by the court. They implemented sweeping changes to their maintenance protocols, hired additional safety inspectors, and increased their maintenance budget by 400%. But for Emma and Michael Richardson, these changes came too late. At Henry's funeral, Maria read from the journal he'd kept for his children. His last entry, written the night before the Disneyland trip, was addressed to Sarah. "Tomorrow, I'm taking our babies to your happy place. I promise to keep them safe. I promise to give them the magic you wanted them to have. Watch over us." The Big Thunder Mountain Railroad reopened 8 months later after extensive renovations and safety upgrades. A small plaque near the exit, noticed by few guests, reads, "In memory of those who remind us that safety is our greatest responsibility." Henry Richardson spent his final years being the father his children needed, creating joy from sorrow, building a new life from loss. He died trying to give them one perfect day, trapped between the dreams he'd planned and the nightmare that unfolded. His death stands as a permanent reminder that when we prioritize profits over people, when we normalize negligence, when we ignore warnings, we risk turning places of joy into scenes of unspeakable tragedy. If this story moved you, please share it. Subscribe to our channel for more true stories that need to be told, remembered, and learned from. Because somewhere today, another single parent is planning a special day with their children, trusting that the places designed for family joy have made safety their highest priority. Henry Richardson's story reminds us why that trust must never be betrayed. The Richardson children are teenagers now, living with their aunt, slowly healing from wounds no child should carry. They've never returned to Disneyland. They never will. Some places, once touched by tragedy, can never again be magical. Some losses echo forever in the laughter that falls silent, in the dreams that die beneath the weight of preventable disasters. Henry Richardson was a hero to his children long before that awful day. He remains one still, not for how he died, but for how he lived, putting family first, choosing presence over profit, and showing that love isn't measured in grand gestures, but in daily choices to be there. His legacy lives on in every parent who chooses time over overtime, in every family that makes memories while they can, in every person who understands that tomorrow is never guaranteed. Rest in peace, Henry Richardson. May your story save others from similar fates.